This Imperialism map might look crazy, but the ACC just added Cal, Stanford, and SMU despite standing for the Atlantic Coast Conference. All of the recent realignment news makes no sense at all, but since they're so spaced out on the map, I thought it would be funny to do an Imperialism. The big names in this ACC battle are Drake May, Jordan Travis, and Cade Klubnik, but a smaller program could take over the map, and if you don't know how Imperialism works, I'll spin the wheel to determine who attacks, and then the arrow one will decide which direction they go. In our first game, we're getting Wake Forest versus Clemson, and this time you can only take over a territory as the attacking team. Also, just a quick side note, I didn't add Notre Dame since they want to remain independent in football, but for some reason they got to vote on adding these 3 schools to the ACC despite not being a full member. It doesn't make much sense to me, but Wake Forest is attacking Cade Klubnik and Clemson, and I don't think they're going to be successful. Here on 4th and 8, they're going with the wide receiver screen, they're not going to get it, and that means nobody loses any territory. It's different than in previous ones, but only the attacking team can take over land, and Florida State's very good, so they could be the first team to win some. This arrow is going to pin them up against Georgia Tech, and the Yellow Jackets are going to need a great performance to stay in it. Well, with about 75 seconds left, Georgia Tech is only trailing by 7, and if Haynes King can lead them down the field, they could tie it up and send the game to overtime with a touchdown. That hit on Malik Rutherford was brutal though, and on 3rd and 6, Haynes King is going to drop back, complete it over the middle, but he's going to complete it to the Florida State defender. That interception will seal it, and the Yellow Jackets are the first team to get knocked out. They honestly did their best, but they just came up short in the end, and who knows what this map will look like by the end of the video. Since only the attacking team can take over territory, it should be interesting, but we've landed on one of the new additions already, and this arrow is pointed to the north. That means Cal doesn't have to attack, but instead just take over the new territory. That's why I wanted to do Imperialism with the new ACC, because it makes no sense, and everybody's already so spaced out, but Wake Forest is attacking again, and this time they're taking their shot at North Carolina. It would be a shame if Drake May got knocked out this early, but he wasn't willing to let that happen, as it's not even close. Wake Forest is going to lose by about 27, and that's their second failed attack already. Nothing's going to happen, but if somebody fires back at them, they're probably going to lose their territory. North Carolina seems to be under a lot of heat right now, but again, they're the better team on paper, so I'm shocked the Tar Heels are down by 6 with 45 seconds left. I guess Drake May just hasn't had an amazing game. He is going to throw this one up, and it's going to be almost intercepted, so you have to wonder, could we be witnessing one of the biggest upsets already? I know it's a rivalry game and all, but NC State is not supposed to be very good this year. He's throwing this one on the run, and what a pass. There is a little bit of hope for the Tar Heels, but they go with a halfback draw on 1st down, and I guess they wanted to try to catch NC State off guard, but they only have 1 timeout remaining now. This ball is going to be a little bit too far, so it's 4th and 1. The game is on the line, and Drake May is not going to be able to make it. He tried to take off right there, but he got stopped, and the Wolfpack just took over all of their territory. The upsets like this are why we love Imperialism so much, unless you're a North Carolina fan, of course, because that's a brutal way to go out. Syracuse is one of those colleges that doesn't have much around them, so it's wild that that arrow was directed straight at Boston College, because instead of taking over free land, they're going on the attack. There's a decent chance the Orange knock out Boston College as well. They have the ball with less than a minute left. That's a 50-50 ball that's knocked away, but all the Eagles had to do was hold on to it to guarantee their safety. Now they're in trouble because Syracuse is moving it. Garrett Schrader is going to sling this one, and that is a great throw, but his receiver just let it hit off of his hands and bounce out of bounds. I don't understand how you can drop a ball in that situation, but they pick up the first, and since they were on 4th down, that keeps them alive. They are sending it up to the end zone, and it's a touchdown. The Eagles, after playing great defense all day, just decided not to, and poor Emmett Moorhead only has 23 seconds, and he is taking the sack. He did his best, but when you only put up 17 points in the game, you have to expect you're probably going to lose. He just shed one there, though, and he gets it off, which is going to be intercepted. That is it. So Boston College fans are left very disappointed, and Garrett Schrader didn't play well, but he did enough to get his team a bit more land, and that leaves Syracuse alone with Pitt in the Northeast. They could be a dark horse to make a run if they could continue to play well, but now the Hurricanes are taking the field, and they're a bit landlocked. No matter where that arrow points, the only way they can go is through Florida State, so they're attacking one of the favorites, and the Seminoles made sure to take care of business, doubling their score. Jordan Travis only threw 15 passes, but he had 3 touchdowns, and now we have witnessed another failed attack in Imperialism. I don't think SMU's touching anyone, so they should get free territory, but that'll get them a little bit closer to other ACC schools, and I gotta say, I am happy for them to finally get that Power 4 opportunity. As for Cal and Stanford, it just doesn't make any sense to have them in the conference, but the Golden Bears still aren't attacking anybody, and after this next game, I'll show you all the updated map. I feel like Florida State's already been in many different matchups, but they are going right back at Miami, and evidently they didn't appreciate the Hurricanes trying to take their land because it's the end of the 3rd quarter, but Miami still hasn't scored a single point. Once again, Jordan Travis threw for 3 touchdowns, and the Seminoles have already knocked out 2 teams themselves. themselves. That leaves them with all of Florida and Georgia, but if they want to win it all, they have a lot more to go. Virginia is one of those teams that I'm not expecting to do much, but they get out of playing by taking over Maryland, and that means we're right back over to the wheel where it lands on Syracuse. Odds are this time they're just going to take over free territory, but again, they don't get a free pass as that puts them towards Pitt, and we'll see if they can knock out the Panthers. Well, we haven't had too many blowouts, but Pitt did nothing, and they had a lot of injury issues today, so assuming they don't pick up this 4th and 15, it's all going to be over, and that's it. Syracuse just knocked out the Panthers, and what a game from Garrett Schrader. We've seen him do good in Imperialisms before, so I guess this shouldn't be a massive shock, but now I doubt that the Orange are going to have to play for a while, and unlike other Imperialisms, it doesn't hurt as much to expand your territory. Florida State won't go away from attacking though. This time they're headed to the northeast, but nobody's over there, so they just take Alabama, and the amount of times teams are able to claim land without attacking should put into perspective how stupid geographically realignment has been. I don't know how kids are going to be able to understand the new conferences, because I remember when I was younger it was already hard enough, but now they don't make any sense. The Seminoles have been landed on again though, and once again they're going to the northwest. It's taking a bit, but everybody's starting to get connected, and I think we've had like 3 or 4 straight land grabs. I know the Cavaliers did the last time they got rolled on. This time it's going to be different though, because they are challenging Syracuse for all of this territory, and can you imagine if they pull this off? To be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be close, but Virginia's only down by 4 with a minute and a half left, and they got a first down on that play, so they're actually threatening to score. Tony Muskett at quarterback is a sick name. He's not firing away though, and he should probably stop trying to scramble. He needs to throw some lasers. This one is going to go for about 40 yards in the air, and it's caught. Well, at least I thought it was, but when you see it from another angle, you'll see that he never held onto the ball. That is unfortunate because Virginia was in a place where they might pull off the upset. Now it's going to be knocked away, and Syracuse survives at home. They did a good job in defending their territory there, but now Virginia Tech wants to get in on the action, and they'll be attacking the Cavaliers, their rivals. I mean, it seems like the Hokies are going to pull it off and knock Virginia out, but they still have a chance to come back, and that was a huge throw from Tony Muskett to get them to midfield and put them in a better position. He's firing all over this Virginia Tech defense right now as that one's going to go for another 10, and the only thing that could really hold them back and slow them down is if they take checkdowns inbounds. Luckily, they're going to fight for the first, because if they didn't, they would have wasted way too much time getting back to the line of scrimmage. This one will put him inside the 10, and Tony Muskett has led a perfect drive, but he has to finish it off, and he's not going to be able to do so. Virginia Tech intercepts it. He did so well up to that final throw, and Grant Wells knocks out the Cavaliers. That puts us down to just 11 different teams remaining, and of course it's still super spread out. At some point, Stanford and Cal will have to connect with the rest of the country, but the arrow hasn't directed them towards each other yet, and it isn't here either. I don't know how the Golden Bears keep getting this lucky, but I think that's the 3rd time they've been landed on and they didn't have to play. We'll see if it happens again. We're going to be spinning the arrow, and it is pointed to the north, so the closest thing is probably Idaho, and I don't know if they're ever going to have to play. NC State is back on the board, and they won their first one, so it'll be interesting to see if they can knock out Duke like they did to North Carolina, but they're going to have to beat quarterback Riley Leonard. He did really well in the last Imperialism I had, but he struggled in this game. On 4th and 10, they went with the halfback screen, and they're going to luckily convert on it, but with 3 minutes remaining, Duke is losing to NC State 17-6, and we'll see if that changes. They seem to be in a hurry-up mode to get the ball back, and on this down, they're going to pick up yet another first plus more, so a comeback is a real possibility, and there's the touchdown. The 2-point conversion's probably more important though. This means they only need a field goal, and Riley Leonard gets it, so the pressure is on NC State to get 1 or 2 first downs, and there's about a 50-50 chance they do or don't. Brennan Armstrong keeps it on the read option, but it's still 3rd and 2, so it all comes down to this, and the counter run gashes them. Duke's gonna lose at home to the Wolfpack, and Jordan Houston had a great game, which is why NC State is one of the 10 remaining teams in ACC Imperialism. I find it a little shocking they've beaten 2 North Carolina schools, but Florida State keeps getting opportunities to attack, and I highly doubt that this is what SMU wanted. They avoided playing for as long as they could, but sophomore quarterback Preston Stone was no match for the Seminoles defense as he still hasn't thrown for a single touchdown. It was a very rough performance for him while Jordan Travis threw for 3 touchdowns like he always does, and immediately after dropping to just 10 teams remaining, we're already down to 9. The biggest territory is either Florida State or Cal, but a lot can still change, and we've seen some crazy stuff in Imperialism. NC State is hot though right now, so it's big that they're on the attack, and you gotta wonder if Virginia Tech is gonna survive this. The only thing they have going for them is the home field advantage, and with 50 seconds remaining, they are on the brink of elimination. They're gonna need a real miracle, but it is 4th and 28, so they don't stand much of a chance, and that's it. NC State just wanted to rub it in there at the end, and they've now taken out more colleges than any other team in the country. I guess when they beat Drake May, I should have known that they would cause cause damage, but Stanford's a team that hasn't been landed on yet, and this is pointing towards Cal. We have been waiting for the colleges on the west coast of the Atlantic Coast Conference to play some games, and it seems like very few teams have defended their home territory well. I thought Cal was going to because they went up 14-0 early, but now they're taking a sack, and their defense gave up 21 straight to Stanford. It's an embarrassing collapse, especially for Sam Jackson V, who just earned the starting job. That's a beautifully thrown ball though, so hopefully he gets the snap off in time so they can at least have a chance at a Hail Mary, but instead he decided not to hike it, and Stanford's gonna take out the Golden Bears. Earlier on, it was taking a bit for teams to get put out, but now these eliminations have been like rapid fire, and we're down to just 7 teams remaining in ACC Imperialism. I think Louisville is the only one on this list that has yet to play, and Clemson as an attacking team is very scary. We'll see if Wake Forest can defend against them at home, but there haven't been many upsets or shockers, so I won't lie, I'm a bit surprised that Wake Forest is only down by 3 with this much time left, but after having a false start penalty and taking a sack there, they're in a bit of trouble. That ball is knocked away, and those 2 defensive ends just made Mitch Griffiths look like a midget. 3rd and 19 is a tough position to be in, especially because I don't know how good their field goal kicker is, but it seems like that was enough to get him in range where he's going to drill it, and the ball is in Cade Klubnik's court. If he's able to score any points on this drive for his team, that'll be it, but Will Shipley couldn't break a tackle there, and here on 2nd down, that's going to be a sack. I thought Clemson might just run down the clock and punt it back, but they're going for all the glory, and that's a first. Normally, the CPU will play for overtime and be very passive, but this is much different, and the Tigers are getting closer and closer to field goal range, so Wake Forest is in a lot of trouble. However, for whatever odd reason, they're not snapping the ball, and I guess we're going to go to overtime. This is the final play of regulation. It's going nowhere. So an interesting choice from Dabo Swinney, but his team has already scored, and I don't understand how you can't hold on to the football when it drops into your hands perfectly like that. There's a chance that could cost Wake Forest because they're on the brink of elimination, but Williams makes up for it, and now that they've gotten down to the 5, they should be able to get in with the halfback draw, so things are just starting to get good, and Wake Forest scores on their next possession. Assuming Clemson gets in here, they're going to start trading 2-point conversions back and forth after touchdowns, and Cade Klubnik had a nasty stiff arm there. After that, they'd get another 6, and on the 2-point conversion, he completes the pass, so the pressure is on Wake Forest in one of the longest games we've had, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first one that's gone to overtime in ACC Imperialism. It's 3rd and 17 now after that stop, and Wake Forest is going to get about half of it back here, but it could all end on 4th and 7 if they don't convert. There's somebody open on the slant, and Clemson's going to get out there to make a tackle, and you'd think that the tight end would fight for some more yards here, but he got leveled. Wake Forest tried, but they're going to be put out with that play, and Cade Klubnik did well. This result means there's only 6 colleges remaining, and there's still a ton of space open here in the middle of the US. If anybody's going to attack Stanford, it'll take them 3 different roles, and that shows how far away on the other side of the country they really are. Florida State's going for everybody though, as now they're attacking Clemson, and these are by far the best 2 teams remaining, but the Tigers weren't willing to go out as they won this one by 17. Jordan Travis really struggled while Cade Klubnik had an amazing performance, so we're right back to the wheel where it's going to land on Stanford. Like I said, they are very far away from attacking anybody, but that roll gets them a little closer to touching Florida State's territory, and I wonder how long they're going to remain isolated on the West Coast. They've been landed on 2 times in a row now, but the arrow wheel is going to keep them away from the Seminoles, and let's see if it can go for a 3rd time in a row. The wheel is going to land on Syracuse, so they're going to be up north and they're going to be headed to the east, which means they also just get to claim another state. Hopefully at some point we get an actual matchup, but Louisville is also pretty much in their own little bit of land, so it's no surprise that they're just going to claim Ohio, and for the 5th spin, please just give us an actual matchup. The arrow wheel for Syracuse is going to direct them over to the east again, so obviously there's no other teams up here, and this is really starting to put in perspective how spaced out everything is. Of course it landed on Stanford, so they're just going to get more land, and I honestly didn't think anybody was going to get the Hawaiian Islands, but leave it to the Cardinal to claim that bit for themselves, and please wheel, just give us a game that we can actually watch. I think NC State's stuck between a lot of teams, so we should have one here, and it's bold of them to try and take out Clemson, but they've already pulled off one upset, so there's a chance, and this is a massive 3rd and goal at the end of the 3rd quarter, which they're not going to get. The Tigers just held the Wolfpack to 3 there, and with less than 2 minutes remaining, they're still trailing by 5, but they're going to pitch it to Phil Maffa off of the option. He throws a guy off of him, and that's going to get them into NC State's red zone. If Clemson isn't able to score, they'll be eliminated, but they go with the option again, and nobody is going to touch Cade Klubnik. This 2-point conversion is also a big deal, which they get, and Brennan Armstrong is going to have to work to get his team in field goal range to send it to overtime. There's not as much pressure on him because if NC State loses, they're still alive, and he's taken out a lot of good teams, so I'm sure that he's able to handle it, but Death Valley has to be very loud right now. On 3rd and 3, he drops back, and he completes it over the middle inside the 40, so so that might be enough to put them in field goal range. He's going for it all though, and I think he was just out of bounds. If Rooks could have gotten 1 foot in, they'd have a real chance at eliminating Clemson, and because of that, they're probably going to have to just go for the field goal. Brennan Armstrong's escaping the pocket, but he gets leveled, and the Tigers don't seem to be able to avoid overtime battles. They're also in a 3rd and 13 on their first drive, and they go with the halfback screen to Will Shipley, but he is not going to be able to pick it up, so NC State might actually knock them out. All it takes is a touchdown on this drive, but the Clemson defense is very good, so they're going to hold them to 3, and he lost the football as well. Never mind, that changed everything. They are out of field goal range. They have to go for it on 4th and 19, and Clemson really just survived there. If anybody was going to take them down, that was probably their best chance, and I'm sure Florida State fans are not happy about that result. Louisville is going to be connecting a lot of ACC schools by taking over Tennessee, and that should spice things up quite a bit, but they've been landed on again, and they still haven't played a game. It's ridiculous that they continue to avoid it, but eventually they are bound to be thrown into a matchup, and Syracuse is back on the table where they're going to be headed to the Northeast again, which means they're getting close to taking over Maine. There's still 20 states that are unclaimed, so there's a lot to go around, but Clemson's surrounded by 3 teams, so they have to attack, and they're going for knocking out the Seminoles. The last time they played, the Tigers won by 17, but Jordan Travis got his revenge in a blowout. He did not want to lose all of Florida State's territory, and we're right back to the wheel where there's still 6 teams left, and Clemson got landed on again. They've played in so many consecutive games, but we're going to get a repeat of the last matchup, and with a few minutes remaining, Florida State's in some trouble. They're down by 10, so they desperately need this 2-point conversion, but Clemson just knocked it away, and since they recovered the onside kick, that might be it. The Seminoles have conserved their timeouts though, so on 3rd and 7, they're going to get an interception. There is no way that he just made that play. Cade Klubnik has turned it over, and nobody is going to catch him unless Will Shipley can. What a turnaround for Florida State. I don't know why they're going for the onside kick, but it's bouncing around, and they just recovered it. Clemson is choking so hard right now. They were about to knock out Florida State. Jordan Travis somehow got out of the pocket there, and I have never seen a team turn around and come back the way the Seminoles are trying to. It seemed like it was all over, and now they could actually win on this drive, but after a terrible run from Trey Benson, it's 4th and 3, and what was that play call? I don't know what Jordan Travis was thinking right there. He threw it immediately, and I highly doubt that Dabo Sweeney's going to let Cade Klubnik pass it again. Instead, he rushes for the first, which seals it, and that means the Seminoles have been knocked out. Right now, Clemson's looking like the favorite to go on and win this entire thing, but there's a decent chance that they're not going to be able to pull that off because there's still 4 other schools that could upset them. They're playing again, so they're being very aggressive, and Louisville is forced into their first matchup. If they lose, they'll instantly be eliminated, and I can't even act like it was ever close as Louisville just struggled. Jack Plummer wasn't able to get anything going against the Clemson defense, and the Cardinals have made it so Clemson is definitely the biggest territory. Just 4 teams remain in ACC Imperialism, and Stanford's still all the way over in the West doing almost nothing. The closest territory to pointing down though is New Mexico, so they're finally touching another program from the ACC, and if the wheel lands the right way, they're gonna have to play. This next attack's a little weird, but Syracuse will be headed to Ohio to play Clemson, and if they win, they're gonna knock out the favorites. Well, with about a minute and a half remaining, they have the ball on Clemson's side of the field, but since they're down by 4, they're gonna need more than a field goal on this drive. They're gonna have to get 6, and what a stiff arm by number 20. LaQuinn Allen fought to make this a manageable 4th and 6, and he's gonna drop this one, so the guy that put them in a decent position ended up choking right there, and Syracuse is gonna get the ball back, but with such little time. I will be very surprised if they're able to pull off anything on this punt return or maybe on a Hail Mary. Their returner ran straight into the Clemson defender, and that's it. The Tigers survive once again, and I have a hard time believing Cade Klubnik's ever gonna play that bad again. The wheel has landed on Stanford though, so they could end up attacking, and the closest thing to that arrow is Purple, Texas. So Clemson's still stuck defending their territory, and they're losing by 1 with 2 minutes remaining, but they're set to score here, and that's a bad drop because you do not want to get a field goal here. You want to get 6, but instead you just have to go for the 3, and Stanford has a real opportunity here to actually pull off the upset. That's an interception on the first play though, and Ashton Daniels just disappointed everybody. I don't know how the Tigers keep on narrowly escaping, but they do it again, so we are right back on the wheel, and this time it lands on Clemson. They've done a fair share of defending, so now they're headed on the attack, and anytime the arrow goes west, they're probably claiming territory. Every team is pretty spaced out from each other besides NC State and the Tigers, so I'm assuming that they're going to end up matched up in this game, and that's exactly what happened. I don't want to jinx anything, but look at the score to end the 3rd quarter, and if Clemson doesn't pick up this 4th and 2, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, but they are able to. It was very unorthodox. Keith Adams Jr. almost blew it, but it ended up working out, and that is almost a pick, so you have to wonder if Cade Klubnik really thought that was open. He's going to get him on 4th down, and it seems like this this is the time where the Tigers are actually going to collapse, though they picked this one up, so I probably shouldn't have said anything. You might notice Will Shipley's not in, and that's because he strained his Achilles earlier on in the game, so that kind of explains how NC State is in this position where all they need is 1 or 2 more first downs. Please don't go out of bounds. That was such a bad choice from Jordan Houston. We want to see upsets, but he made it possible for Clemson to get 3 stops here. They're going to take him down on the edge, and here on 3rd and 2, it all comes down to this, where he is going to actually pick it up. Jordan Houston is going to burn by the Tiger defense. That's it. Clemson fans cannot believe it, and they really just got knocked out at home. Nobody could have predicted this type of run from NC State, but with some of the wins they've gotten, they definitely deserve it, and we are down to our final 3. Stanford gets drawn, so I'm expecting that they're just going to claim some territory, and that's exactly what the Cardinal do. There's still a lot of space between them and the other 2 teams in the ACC, so I feel like they've pretty much guaranteed themselves a spot in the championship, but they're trying to go on the attack, and there's just so much in the way. They might be taking over unclaimed states for a while, and this was not how I expected the end of this to go. I thought for sure that either Florida State, North Carolina, or Clemson would be here, but instead we're watching Stanford continue to take over land, and if you all want me to do this with the other conferences and their crazy expansion, make sure to let me know, because I definitely have a few more in me. Syracuse just got Maine, which they've been shooting for a while now, and I just want to see one of these teams take the field. Stanford has connected to NC State in multiple places, but the arrow is still gifting them more land, and on this wheel spin, it's going to land on the orange, so we're back up in the northeast, and the arrow is taking us to the south, which you'd think would mean a game, but they're going to claim West Virginia instead. Surely, at some point, this can no longer go on, and I trust that NC State's going to get stuck in a matchup here. Unfortunately, that was dumb, because it's going to hit this tip of Indiana, and there are still another 10 unclaimed states. I do think we've pretty much gotten to the point, though, where they're going to have to match up against each other, and Syracuse's arrow is going to take them to the south again, which means this time they're attacking NC State. If the Orange win, they'll guarantee themselves a spot in the championship, but it wasn't even close. NC State is going to beat Syracuse 34-7, and we're headed back to the wheel, where this time it is going to land on Stanford. There's a decent chance they'll actually have to attack here, but no, instead the arrow is going to just graze along the state, and here we go. The next spin is going to land on the Cardinal again, so could this finally be the time they're pointed in the right direction? I think it is, as that's going to go straight down to Texas, and they're going to take their shot at NC State. Well, with about 40 seconds left, they're about to score on the Wolfpack with this run, but NC State still has 2 timeouts left, and I've learned from experience you can't count them out. At the very least, I think Brennan Armstrong will get them in a position where they can attempt a Hail Mary, but he just got leveled on that play, so maybe not. Here on 2nd and 10, he floats it up, which is just tipped down, and I don't know why the Stanford cornerback didn't go for the interception there. That could have sealed the game, but instead it's 4th and 7. There's still a little bit of hope, and the halfback screen is going to go nowhere. Stanford is one of the final 2 teams remaining, and it feels like we're back in 2013 again. As the Cardinal take over all of the Wolfpack's land, you'll notice in the middle that Oklahoma just hasn't been claimed, and that could make for a very interesting piece in this final game. Remember, the only team that can take over land is the attacking one, so we might be going back and forth for a bit before that happens. There's still a lot of land between these 2 teams, and the arrow has to line up to where they'd end up playing, but we finally got that as Syracuse is going to Stanford, and if they take them down, they'll win ACC Imperialism. It's taken until the end of the first quarter for somebody to score, and with 2 minutes left in the 3rd quarter, it is 10-0, so Syracuse is clearly struggling. They've done well on the defensive side of the ball, but not on offense, and with about 3 minutes remaining, they're looking to get a stop on 3rd down on Stanford, but they're not going to be able to do so, which is a big deal, because the Cardinal are able to just run out the clock and avoid losing. That means that these teams are going to have to meet again, and remember, only the attacking team can win the championship. Syracuse has gotten lucky for the 2nd wheel spin in a row, but instead of playing again, they're going to have to claim territory, so I'm sure that Stanford is just hoping that this finally lands on them. The arrow just has to direct them towards the Orange's land, but instead it lets them take over Oklahoma. I feel like this could go back and forth forever, but this could be the time where they actually have to play again, and with the arrow pointing down in this direction, the closest thing is Syracuse, which means Stanford is going for the win. Just like the last game, the Cardinal are starting up 10-0, but they're looking to score even more, and Ashton Daniels almost threw an interception, but instead they get a field goal. To be honest, that guy might not even be Stanford's starting quarterback because they won't name their starter, but by the time you all are seeing this, you'll know who it is, so we'll see if I'm right. That was a massive 4th down goal line stop though, and if Syracuse can't force a safety here, they are in a lot of trouble. By the time there was a minute remaining in the 3rd quarter, they're still trailing by 13, and they're going to be forced to punt again, but they forced a huge fumble, so they have it on 3rd and 7, and what was that? I've watched a lot of games, but I have never seen the team run a play like that, and it was supposed to be 4th and 4, but a false start penalty penalty's going to make it 4th and 9, and Syracuse still picks it up. Garrett Schrader has kept them alive, but they need to score on this drive because Stanford is getting closer and closer to beating them, and if they do that, they'll win ACC Imperialism, which will never make any sense, but they're going to be one of the new teams next season, and Garrett Schrader cannot go anywhere. They're stuck on a 4th down again, and on 4th and goal, he is just going to take the check down. The receiver won't make it, but on their next drive, they've worked it inside the red zone again, and this time they need to finish the job. He trucked a guy, so it seems like he's very determined, but the halfback draw gets eaten alive, and it's 4th and 3. We have seen Stanford get so many 4th down stops. They are not going to do it here, or will they? Price made sure to give his team the best chance they could. He even hurdled over this guy, stumbling for the first, but the game decided that the ball didn't cross the marker, so it's pretty much all over, and it's crazy Stanford's going to actually win Imperialism, but that first down seals it. It was an abysmal game from a championship perspective, but Ashton Daniels got his team the win, and it's time to make the map of the United States a cardinal red. Of all the teams that would have won the ACC Imperialism, this one catches me off guard, but again, if you want to see me do it with other conferences, make sure to let me know in the comments, and check out this Imperialism if you haven't already.